Hello, I'm Professor Dale, and I am going to be the instructor for your Math 300 course this semester. So welcome. Now, what I wanted to do in this video is just go over the syllabus, kind of communicate the way the course is going to work, and kind of just cover the basics for first day kind of stuff. So again, this is Math 300, Introduction to Mathematical Ideas. And you're going to see here my name and my email address. In a normal semester, there'd be a lot more information here. You'd have my office number, both my phone number and the office, address, office hours, all those kinds of things. But because we're meeting, or we're not meeting on campus, those are unnecessary, and I don't have access to my phone number or my office phone anymore. So, email is really the way to get a hold of me. Below this, you're going to see the textbook that we're using for the course. It's called Mathematical Ideas, and it's important that you get the 14th edition. I believe the 14th edition is relatively new. It came out in the last year or two, if I'm remembering that right. So you do want to make sure you have the most current edition, the 14th edition, and the reason for that is because the homework for the course is assigned out of the textbook. So if you have a different edition than the 14th, the numbers for the homework exercises aren't necessarily going to align correctly. So make sure you're getting that. Below this, you'll see a description for the course. This is just the catalog description for the course. I'll let you read through this as well as the student learning outcomes on your own if you haven't already. Before we go past this little section, though, I do want to mention kind of what this course is, just to give you some realistic expectations of what we do in this class. So Math 300 is, as it says, an introduction to mathematical ideas. I kind of like to think of this course as an appreciation course. For example, if you're studying music, you can take music appreciation. This is kind of like math appreciation. The idea of the course is not to dig terribly deep into any of these topics, but rather to introduce you to a handful of different mathematical topics that you don't necessarily cover in a traditional math curriculum. A lot of these topics are not necessarily things you would have seen in high school math or something like that. And in particular, one of the things we're going to be covering in this course is historical numeration systems. So we're going to talk about how the ancient Egyptians or the Mayans or the Babylonians wrote numbers, and how we basically read numbers in their own set of symbols and systems. It's not really the kind of thing that you would necessarily need for a job in the future, but it's something that's kind of interesting and gets you sort of a better understanding of how math has developed over the centuries, over the millennia, and it's just kind of here to generate some interest in the subject. Anyways, moving beyond that, I have my motto that I put on every syllabus for every course I teach. It says, remember, math is not a spectator sport. Nobody becomes proficient at math simply by listening to lectures. The key to success is practice, practice, practice. That's my little cliche, and I stand by it. It's very true. Much more than other disciplines, math is something that you really need to be hands-on with. That's the reason why we have homework. The homework is there for you to practice. So if you're not doing the practice, you can't expect to show up on test day and just knock it out of the park. You need to have put in the time ahead of time, preparing and learning the material by doing the problem sets that I assign. So that's that. Let's talk a little bit about the structure of the course. Because of the current situation where we're doing things all entirely online, I conduct my courses, my classes, far different than I would on campus. So normally, if we were meeting on campus, we'd have specific meeting times where you would come into class, you'd listen to me yak on and on and on, maybe ask a few questions to you, and then send you on your way. However, this course is going to be taught asynchronously, which means that there is no official meeting times. The material that you're going to be accessing can be accessed on your own time. Now, the way this actually works, you'll need to access our Canvas page, which you should know how to do. But if you don't, send me an email. I'll get you set up. On our Canvas page, every Monday, I'm going to post lecture videos as well as lecture notes on Canvas, and they'll be labeled, they'll show up in the modules. You'll see a module for week 1, week 2, and so on. So you should see those things show up Monday morning every week, and then what you need to do is go and watch those lecture videos. You can pace yourself however you feel works best for you, but the idea is to watch all of those videos throughout the course of the week. And then once you've done that, or at least once you've watched some of the material, you should be working on the homework at the same time. So I'll talk a little bit more about homework a little bit later, but that's the way that the lectures work. Now the lecture videos, I should mention, you'll see them on the Canvas page, but they're actually videos that I've uploaded to YouTube. So you can also get to my YouTube channel from those videos and watch them that way. The only reason I mention that is to say that if you do, go to my YouTube channel and watch the videos there, you're welcome to comment on the videos, but I'm not going to respond to those. I have been using this YouTube channel for my summer courses as well as the courses that I taught over the spring when we first moved to the online format. And there's far too many of them, and it's not the way that I want to communicate with students in the comments section of YouTube. So don't expect to get any replies from me if you go that route. I'm going to talk in a second about how we do communicate and how we do ask questions in this class. So anyways, that's it on lectures. You'll see those show up on the first week, and then every Monday after that. Discussion. So this is where you get questions answered. In Canvas, there's a tab that's going to be called Discussions. And what you need to do, if you have questions on either the lectures or the homework, is you want to go there and find the appropriate discussion topic. So basically what I'm going to do, we cover, I believe it's 5 chapters of our book over the course of this semester. And for each chapter, I'm going to create 2 discussion topics. One is going to be for the lecture videos corresponding to that chapter, and one is going to be for the homework corresponding to that chapter. And if you have questions on lecture videos, you can go and type those up in the discussion forum, and I can answer those. Same thing, if you have questions on homework problems, you can ask your questions there. Now, one thing I do ask in either of these cases is that you be specific with your questions. It's really, really important that you be specific. And here's what I mean by specific. Let's suppose you want to ask a question on a lecture video. Let's suppose we're working through chapter 2. That's the first chapter we cover in this course. And you're confused about something that happened or something that I said at a particular point in a video. You need to reference exactly which video you're talking about, because there's going to be dozens. And you need to also tell me what the time code is on the video when I said the thing that confused you or that you had a question on. So for example, our first section is on symbols and terminology for set theory. And I believe the video, I think that video is like 1 or 2 parts. So let's just say it's part 2. And you have a question on something that I mentioned 5 minutes into the video. What you need to do is say, I have a question on what you said in video 2.1, symbols and terminology, at the 5-minute mark, and then ask your question from there. And what that does is that helps me to know where in the lecture video I need to go back and look at what I said so I can answer your question appropriately. Homework questions, the way I want you to ask questions on homework problems, if you're struggling, is to be specific not only about obviously, which problem and from which section in the book you're struggling with, but also I need you to tell me what you tried. It's really important that you give me some information on what it is that's stumping you in a problem. Now, of course, there's some problems where you won't even know where to start, and you'll be completely stumped from the very beginning, and that's fine, but tell me that. What I'm not a huge fan of are when students ask a question like this. How do I do number 5? That doesn't tell me what it is about number 5 that you're struggling with. Usually, if I can help it, my assistance on a homework problem is not going to be to just give you an answer. I want to kind of nudge you in the right direction. I've already learned this material, so I don't need it's not on me to do all the thinking, right? I should be able to kind of nudge you in the right direction and then see if you can take it from there. But if you're not specific about what you're struggling with, I don't really know the best way to help you. So I need specifics in those discussion forums when you're asking questions to best help you. Okay, moving on. Things that you need for this course. So even though the course is being held online, I am collecting homework, and the homework is handwritten. It's not typed. It's not submitted through some kind of software or anything like that. You're not mailing things to me. That's not how I get it. What I want you to do is scan your homework. Now, some people might have an actual hardware scanner, like a printer scanner combo. But I realize most people probably don't have that at home. What I'm recommending most people do, and this is how I scan my documents as well, is if you have a smartphone, and these days just about everybody does, if you have a smartphone, there's a lot of scanning apps that are free. The one that most of my students have been using up until this point is called Cam Scanner, and I've heard that it's been relatively easy to use. They've had success with it for the most part, so that's a good place to start. I actually don't use Cam Scanner. I have a Dropbox account that I use for a lot of my documents, and within the Dropbox app, there's a scanning app built into that. So there's others that are available. You can kind of shop around, I guess, but don't actually pay for anything. It should be free, and use that to scan your homework. So when you're submitting assignments, generally assignments are going to be multiple pages. If it's not multiple pages, you're probably not doing enough work. The homework will be generally multiple pages, and you need to be able to scan all of those pages into a single PDF file. So what I do not want when you're submitting homework is several pictures that you took, several separate JPEG or PNG files or whatever. That's not the way to submit homework. It needs to be a PDF, and these scanning apps will generally scan to a PDF by default. So that's why I recommend using one of these apps. And not only that, it needs to be a multi-page PDF. So again, what that means is if your homework assignment is 9 pages long, what you should be turning in is a single PDF that has 9 pages in it. What you should not do is give me 9 separate files. You should not be submitting 9 separate PDFs. Okay? And on that note, at the very beginning of class, or at the beginning of the semester, I'm going to put up a sample assignment to basically get you practice on submitting things through Canvas. So I'll explain that a little bit later, but it's going to give you practice scanning an assignment that has multiple pages and then submitting it so you can see what that process looks like before having to do it with homework. Okay, moving on, let's go ahead and talk about homework. The way that I'm going to be assigning homework in this course, I'm going to give you a homework assignment sheet that's going to be available on Canvas, and basically from the very start of the semester you should have all of the homework for the entire semester right there. So you'll know everything that I'm going to be assigning right from day one. I'm going to be collecting homework assignments by chapter. So what that means is I don't collect homework every day. I don't even necessarily collect homework every week. You're going to be working on the homework as we go through each chapter, and then we have a test at the end of each chapter. On those test days, you're going to be submitting your homework. That's when they'll be due. You can also submit your homework early if you choose to, but the due date is the day of each individual test. Okay. Now the way homework is going to work, each chapter is broken up into a different number of sections, and you'll be working through the homework problems that I assign from that homework assignment sheet on paper. And you need to keep everything in order. So if the first chapter has 4 sections in it, I want you to have section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4 in that order. If the pages are all jumbled up and out of order, I'm not going to waste my time trying to figure out what everything is. I have found that by this online teaching format, I'm a lot busier than I expected to be. And I genuinely do not have the time to leaf through homework assignments that are out of order. So it is on you to make sure that that is scanned correctly and everything is in the correct order. Okay, so with that said, homework assignments you have to submit by 11:59 p.m. on whatever day a test falls on, and you'll have the dates for all of our tests by the first day of class. There's going to be a calendar available on Canvas that has those test dates available. Now, we'll go on to the other page, the next page here in a second, but one thing I did want to mention that's different about how I teach these courses online compared to when I teach in person. Just to kind of accommodate people in this kind of crazy time that we're in right now, I'm choosing to keep things as simple as I possibly can. So normally when I teach in person, you're graded based on a number of different things. I usually do warm-up problems at the beginning of each day. That's worth a percentage of your grade. I give quizzes periodically, and then there's also the homeworks and the exams, and then the final exam. To accommodate the current situation and keep things simple, I've cut out a lot of that stuff. So to keep things streamlined, the only things that I'm grading you on are homework, exams, and the final exam. That's it. Now, because of that, homework is going to make up a larger chunk of your grade than it would in a normal in-person class for me. Homework makes up actually 30% of your grade. And when I grade homework, I'm actually just grading it for completeness. I'm not going through and checking each problem for correctness or accuracy or anything like that, simply because I don't have anywhere near the amount of time it would require to do something like that. So it really is just completeness. I'm going through and I'm making sure that you tried everything and that your answers don't look like you just wrote them down from the back of the book, but that it looks like you actually did some work on it. Each individual section worth of work is worth 5 points, and that'll total up to whatever your homework is worth for that particular assignment. But because we cover 5 chapters in the book, there's only going to be 5 homework assignments. So it's not going to feel like a lot, but you do need to be working very consistently to keep up with the pace of the class. Okay, I think I said enough on homework, so let's go ahead and go on to the next page. I want to talk about exams next. So, like I had said before, we have 5 exams throughout the course, and I do have a policy of dropping your lowest exam score, just as kind of a safety net. I don't do any extra credit, period. So that's the one thing I do to help give you kind of a safety net, drop that lowest score. Now, like I said before, the calendar that I'm going to put on Canvas will tell you the test days, but because this course is asynchronous, the exams will not be given at specific times, just on specific days. And I'm going to put a sample exam on Canvas at the beginning of the semester to have you practice how we do exams in this course. The exams will appear under the Quizzes tab in Canvas. And as soon as you click, take the quiz, a timer will start. Each exam, you're going to have 2 hours and 15 minutes to complete, which is, in my opinion, the way that I write these exams, an excessive amount of time. And in fact, most students, in my experience, will finish these tests within an hour. But I want to make sure you have plenty of time. 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's really 2 hours to take the exam. The 15 minutes here is intended to make sure you have enough time to scan your exam, because it's going to be handwritten, and then submit it. Now, I just finished teaching a couple of summer courses where I did this, and then I also, in the spring last semester, did this as well. And I had people who would run into technical issues where they would either have, their internet would go out, or Canvas was acting up for them for some reason. Make sure when you're submitting an exam that you leave yourself enough time to scan it and then submit it, and account for the possibility that you might have technical difficulties. Do not wait until 30 seconds left in your exam to start scanning and submitting. You're not going to get it in on time. So really aim to be done with your exam by the 2 hour mark, and then treat the 15 minutes as submission and making allowance for technical difficulties. Now, if for some reason you encounter issues that prevent you from uploading your exam to Canvas, what I want you to do is email me your scanned exam right away. Scan it, attach it to an email, send it immediately. And what I can do in that case, I can check. I have the ability on my end to see when you started an exam in Canvas, and I can correlate that to when you sent the email and determine whether or not you actually finished your exam in the correct amount of time. I don't want everybody doing that. I don't want to be grading tests from my email, but that's only in the case where you run into issues that you can't resolve within the time limit. That's your backup plan. Email your exam to me. Okay. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything important here. When we do the sample exam at the beginning of the semester, you should get a better idea of how these are going to function. So hopefully, any questions that you have about exams are going to be answered with that little sample assignment. Exams are going to make up 50% of your total grade. And again, there's 5 exams, but I'm dropping your lowest score, so I'm going to take your best 4 scores. Final exam is going to be cumulative. It's going to show up at the end of the course. There's going to be a date for the final exam that shows up on your calendar that I'll give you. Final exam is going to be worth 20% of your grade. That's very, very standard for final exams. And because it's a final exam, it'll be a little bit longer than a normal exam, so I'm also giving you more time. You'll have 3 hours and 15 minutes to complete it, scan it, and turn it in. And again, that amount of time, the way that I write your final exam, that should be an excessive amount of time. You should have plenty of time built in there. Okay, so here's a breakdown again of how the different categories of graded work contribute to your final grade. And here's my grading scale. It's the standard one. 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, and so on and so forth. The last couple of things here is just standard stuff I put in my syllabi. Cheating is not acceptable, of course. And I just want to mention something that happened just in my summer class. This just happened. I gave an exam, and in the exam, I started to notice kind of something curious in the way that a lot of the students were answering one of the questions. It seemed like a bizarre way to answer the question. I'm not going to go into detail on that. But then I did some poking around, and I'm actually very, very familiar with the websites that students use to ask questions on math problems and exam questions and things like that. I found my test, that particular test question scanned and uploaded to Chegg, and students had copied word for word a solution from Chegg into their test. So because of the way that I'm doing exams, I can't sit there and monitor everybody. I can't, make sure nobody's using resources I don't want you to use. So I'm not being a stickler on that stuff. But it needs to be your own work. You can't work with each other on exams, and I don't want you going and copying asking questions on places like Chegg or something like that, and submitting basically plagiarized work. So if I see that kind of stuff, you get a 0 on the test. That's it. It's going to be fairly straightforward, and like I said, I do know all the usual resources that people use for this kind of a thing. I will be checking those resources to see if there is cheating going on. So you really don't want to roll the dice on that and end up with a 0 on a test, especially when they make up as much of your score as they do. So I've said enough on that. I'm just going to leave that alone. Finally, students with learning or physical disabilities or any kind of special needs should let me know as soon as possible about accommodations that are needed. This privately after class part is just something that I'd normally put in my syllabi, but obviously we don't have class meetings, so you can ignore that. Because we're doing things online, most accommodations that I would normally be meeting in the classroom don't really apply in this scenario. But a lot of times when people have an accommodation that's been approved, it's for extended test time. And so if that's you, what I need you to do is make sure I get your paperwork. You should have gone through DSPS to get those accommodations approved. If I get your paperwork from DSPS, I can make those accommodations. That's it for the syllabus. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I'm looking forward to a great semester.